Hey, how's it going, guys? Sorry I disappeared for a couple of weeks, maybe a month and a half at the most. I am now in a different state. Currently, I am in Texas now, so I did just move to Texas around maybe 2 weeks ago. So I've been getting everything all readied up and packed to get here where I am at now. I actually just got a toolbox yesterday. I just bought a brand new one. The old one I had, I sold it and I left it. It was just too small. I was filling that thing up quickly. So yeah, I have another toolbox now. I have my garage all set up now, so everything's all organized and stuff, so it should make my life a little bit easier when it comes to working on the car. So I'm so sorry about the lack of videos, but I am back. Today, we are going to be mitigating an issue that I've been having. I've been having a lot of issues with the coolant temperature being high. And I try to kind of mitigate this issue by hardwiring a switch to the fans. So essentially, the fans on our Subarus, at least the 98 to the 2001 generation, our Subarus are actually ground switched. So when the coolant sensor senses that your vehicle is at, I believe it's 205 degrees, it will kick on and ground the circuit for the relay to the actual fans. So it's going to ground out the circuit, and then by grounding out the circuit, it'll actually complete the circuit and it will let your fans run. So what I ended up doing was I actually hardwired a switch into the OEM wire that goes into the relay that gets grounded off by the coolant sensor. I ended up tapping into that ground wire and I grounded it to a switch, and then from the switch to the chassis essentially. And that's what I did. So it's hardwired to a switch. And in the case that I don't want to use the switch, I can still actually use the OEM route, which is where it kicks on at 205 degrees and it'll kick on the fans and pretty much go from there. So with the fans hardwired to the switch, my temps wouldn't really creep up as quickly as they would obviously with the switch off, since I wasn't bridging and grounding that circuit and making the fans turn on. But what I did notice was that when I was at idle, our car should be at least under 220 degrees or 215. Anything technically over 215 can be considered overheating. So the temperature on my car, when I'm actually driving and going, my temperatures will sit at 172 with the fans kicked on. Now, when I come to a stop and I sit in traffic for maybe 15 to 20 minutes, stop and go traffic, my temps will start creeping up. I checked my coolant. I made sure that it was completely bled of any bubbles or any air pockets. So the coolant was completely bled out. So it has nothing to do with the coolant system itself. It has to do with the fans. So whenever I sit at the light, my temps will want to creep up towards 220, 225. It got to 225 at some point. And that's when I actually was just like, nope. I was like, I am not gonna deal with this. I ended up just skipping over through traffic and I pull over to the side, and that was pretty much it. I let it cool down, and that was probably the biggest scare I had as far as coolant temps goes. But I haven't really sat in traffic for that reason, because I know my coolant temperatures will rise if I sit in traffic. So pretty much what this is falling back on is going to be the fans. I'm running eBay fans. It was something I cheaped out on. I think it's the only thing I cheaped out on. I think about it. Yeah, literally I think the fans were the only eBay thing I use. So the eBay fans are not keeping up. According to the claim that they had on their item description, was that I was supposed to be pushing out 800 CFMs a piece, so a total of 1,600 with the both of them kicked on, because I'm kicking on the both at the same time. Now, I'm upgrading to Spal. So Spal is like the best fans you can get as far as I know for Subis. They don't recommend using Mishimoto from what I've heard and from what I've seen. So I went with Spals. I went with 12-inch fans. They are supposed to be pushing out 1,400 CFMs a piece, making it a total of 2,800 for the both. So that is going to be a significant more amount of air that's going to be pushing through that radiator with those fans pulling the air. So this should be pretty much what's going to fix my cooling issue. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to drain my coolant. I'm going to get the radiator out, get those eBay fans out, and then I'm going to get the Spals on. I'm going to test what a Spal spins compared to the eBay fan, because the eBay fan is definitely not cutting. It's not doing the work that's supposed to. So I'll go ahead and test the two fans so you guys can see what the huge difference is between an eBay fan and a Spal fan. Spal fans are the way to go if you have no way to fit your OEM fans in there. OEM fans are going to be the best option for your Subaru if you are trying to keep your coolant temps low. So just as a heads up, OEM fans are going to be top of the mark, and then under that will be the Spal fans. And then pretty much from there, I wouldn't recommend just doing any other fan, just stick to Spals. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get this all started, and fingers crossed this all goes well. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna have to rebleed the coolant system after I'm done here, because I'm draining the radiator out of all coolant that's in there. So this is gonna be fun. You guys will see how to essentially bleed out the coolant system here. But yeah, other than that, let's move on forward with this. It is so hot here compared to Colorado. It is insane. Like, the heat is absolutely, it's serious here. It is serious, especially with humidity. So yeah, let's get started with this whole install and comparison, and we'll continue on forth with this. All right, I'm gonna get this hood popped open. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack up the front end, because I'm actually going to be splicing in a thicker wire for my fans. The wire that I spliced in there for the other fans, it's a little slimmer, so I want to make sure that the gauge is thick enough for the fans to work. Since they are Spals, they will be pulling more power. So I just want to make sure that, you know, that basis is covered and I don't get any type of electrical fire. So I'm going to jack up the car from the front just a little bit, so I can get under there and then solder the new pigtail. And then, yeah, we'll continue our forth with this. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I have a feeling that I might end up putting the car back down after I'm done doing that, just because I don't want to deal with the car just being up on jack stands. So I'm probably just gonna get it up in the air. I'm gonna disconnect the fans, splice in the wire harnesses, and then bring the car back down. And then we'll continue on forth with taking the radiator out and comparing fans, installing the new fans, and then putting the steam back in and rebleeding the cooling system. So now we're gonna go ahead and test the fans. So that one right there is gonna be a Spal, and this one right here is gonna be the eBay fan. So I'm gonna test out the Spal first. That's a pretty strong fan. You can tell it just by hearing the motor working. All right, so I'm gonna disconnect this one now, and I'm gonna go ahead and connect the eBay one. I'm gonna put this on top, using that as a weight so it doesn't move anywhere. Oh. Definitely tell the difference between the two already. The Spal definitely sounds like it's moving a lot more air. And I did put my hand over the actual Spal earlier to see what it felt like, and it's definitely moving more air with the Spal. So this should definitely fix my cooling issues. So now we're gonna go ahead and finish up the wiring for these, and then get the radiator out, and then install the Spal fans on there. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take out my front mount intercooler piping right here. Your guys' setups are different, so I have mine in the way, so I gotta take this off. And then once I get this off, I will disconnect my upper radiator hose, and I'll pretty much drain this out completely. And then we'll go ahead and actually install the new fans on there and get this thing all set and done. And now that the front mount piping is out, I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect the upper radiator hose. Then I'll go ahead and take these two 12s out, and then pretty much take the radiator on out of here. So let's get this hose on out of here. And there you go. The hose is off. And then we're gonna go ahead and take these two 12s out, and then we should be able to get the radiator on out of here. So it's really not that bad to get these radiators on out, especially if you have a setup like mine. It just makes everything a lot easier. But just regardless, just in general, Subaru radiators are pretty easy to get on out. So yep, just these two 12s, and then should go get that thing on out of here. I might have to take off my front grille to get this one out. No, never mind, I was able to slide it over. So now we should be able to move this thing on out. Try to make sure I drain a little bit more coolant. You can see there is a lot more coolant trapped in the radiator. It's mainly because it's a cross flow, so it flows from side to side. So there's more coolant that was trapped on this side right here. All right. And whenever you take off radiators, you want to make sure you don't damage the fins in any way. Oh, so there you go. She's all empty right here again. So yeah, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to the radiator, get to the old fans off and put the new ones on, and then this should hopefully, fingers crossed, fix the whole overheating issue. I really hope it fixes it. I mean, that's the only thing that it's leading to, so I guess we'll see. So let's get to it. All right, so I have the fans all set up now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the radiator and drop it back in. And then I am probably gonna bleed the coolant tomorrow because it is too late. My car is too loud to be revving it out at full song. So yeah, we're gonna do that tomorrow. So for now, we'll just drop the radiator in, bolt it in, get the lower upper radiator hose in, get the little expansion hose in as well. And then we'll call it a night, and then we'll skip on over to tomorrow, and you will see me bleed this thing on out. So the new fans are now in, and they definitely take up way more space now than the actual on the radiator, just because they are bigger as well. Damn. All right, I think this is a very tight fit, but it will clear from the looks of it. I'm gonna check the bottom and make sure that the bottom is actually seating on the mounts. Perfect. All right. So yeah, now I'm gonna go ahead, connect the upper, lower radiator hose, now throw on the front mount piping in there, and I think that should be it. Man, the clearance it's pretty tight. I mean, it's okay, like it's not gonna give me an issue, but man, that is a very tight fit. If I would've gone with bigger fans, I would've definitely been hitting the belt, and that would've been an issue. So yeah, let's get the hoses on. So lower one is seated. All right, cool. So now I'm gonna get the front piping, pretty much reconnect that, and tie the lower hose, and then that should be it. I'm gonna figure out how I'm gonna clean up the wiring for the bottom end of this car. If this doesn't work and it continues wanting to overheat, radiator is going to be next. It looks like I do have some clearance for at least maybe half an inch. This side I would have to cut a little bit, but I wouldn't mind cutting and sacrificing a little bit of the front rad frame to fit a bigger radiator. So yeah, that would be the next step. So hopefully this fixes it. Fingers crossed. I mean, it seems to be fitting pretty well, so we will see. It is the morning now. So what we're going to do is we are going to bleed the cooling system. To start the bleeding process, I always recommend to fill up the radiator first. Once you fill up the radiator, burp it out of any bubbles that you see. So pretty much you're going to massage the top hose and just make sure there aren't any more bubbles coming out of the little fill tube that is on your radiator. Mine doesn't have a radiator cap on the top, so I don't have to worry about a radiator cap there, but there is a 17 mil that I do have to take off. In addition, you want to make sure that your overflow tank is like halfway full. The reason being is because when your cooling system is pretty much going through its heating and cooling cycle, What coolant will do is that it will expand. As it heats up, the coolant will expand and it'll start rising. And then once it starts cooling down, the coolant will actually contract and it will shrink down. If you don't have coolant in there, essentially when it shrinks down and contracts, it's going to pull in air. So you don't want that. So make sure that your overflow tank is filled to at least halfway. Just in case, you know, if you do overfill and it wants to pretty much expand and kind of go a little bit over the high mark, it doesn't just go everywhere. That's why I just recommend doing that at the halfway mark. Once you are done pretty much massaging the bubbles out of the radiator by doing the bottom hose and then the top hose, that is when you move on to your expansion tank. And then you fill up the expansion tank and you start squeezing the radiator hoses again. Make sure you get all the coolant bubbles out. As many as you can. It's impossible to get all of them out, but it's possible to get most of them out. So once you get those two done, that is when you go ahead and start filling up the expansion tank, turn on the car, let it run its cycles, and then pretty much just keep filling the coolant and keep bleeding out the coolant system until it's completely done. I would allot maybe 30 minutes to get the cooling system bled. It really depends on what setup you have on your cooling system. For me, it's probably gonna take me anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. It's not fun because I have IG aerial separator as well. I ended up buying pretty much a coolant bleeding kit just because my cooling system is extremely complex, so it's hard for me to just keep filling up the expansion tank until, you know, I'm pretty much done bleeding the coolant. If you don't have anything complex like me, like if you don't have an aerial separator that's higher than your expansion tank, you should be okay to keep filling it up from the expansion tank, but it's always best to just do it with an actual bleeding kit. So that's what I'm gonna use. So you're gonna see me fill up the radiator, fill up the overflow, fill up the expansion tank, and then you're gonna see me use the actual coolant bleeding kit. So yeah, all right, let's get on forward with this. Let's get this all set and done, and then fingers crossed, I do not have the cooling issue anymore. If I continue to have cooling issues, I'm gonna have to upgrade that radiator. That's pretty much all there's gonna be to it. So yeah, let's get on forward with this. All right, so I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna get my 17. I'm gonna pretty much loosen up this one, take the bolts out completely, and start filling up this radiator from right here. And I am gonna reuse my coolant. I did buy some filters to get this done. You're probably gonna wanna buy those if you're gonna reuse your coolant. They're pretty much like paint filters. It'll filter out any dirt and debris from getting into your coolant or into your jug or your coolant system, whatever you're gonna use to get coolant in there. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna fill this one up first with the coolant I have in my bottle right now, and then pretty much fill up the radiator, massage all the bubbles out that I can, or the air pockets, and then move on to the expansion tank. All right, so I got my coolant all filtered out here. Might be useful for you guys to put like a napkin or something right where this hole's at, so that way you guys don't get any coolant anywhere, like how kind of I just did. I'm probably gonna get a napkin. All right, so that's one whole jug in there. These take approximately 2 gallons. I'm gonna pour some of the other one, and then it should fill up here shortly. And then we'll get on forth with bleeding the whole coolant system. I'm just gonna skip this part and pretty much get to where I'm massaging the hoses and just go from there. All right, so we are at the part where you pretty much start massaging the radiator hoses. So the way to get this done is essentially you're gonna massage the radiator hoses and make sure all the bubbles are out. You're gonna see it kind of like puking out like little bubbles. I always recommend going from the bottom first. So start with that hose right there. Kind of pretty much what you're gonna do is just go from the bottom and then just kind of just squeeze it. Just keep squeezing it until you get pretty much all the bubbles on out. And then yeah, once you get that one done, you're gonna fill it up with coolant again and just keep doing the same process, and then until you don't see any more air bubbles. So bottom first, and then start with the top one, and then once you don't see any more air bubbles coming on out, that is when you're going to fill up your expansion tank from there. So make sure your overflow is filled halfway. So this one's my overflow. Typically you'll see it right here on this side. So just make sure that is halfway full. Make sure your radiator has most of the bubbles on out of there, or most of the air pockets on out, and then you can move on to your expansion tank. The reason why I do it this way is because this will make it easier when it comes to bleeding the cooling system. It'll make it go quicker, it'll be easier. That's the reason why I do it this way. Some other people do it differently and just fill up the expansion tank first, but I do the radiator first, massage all the air bubbles out, and then move on over to that. So yeah. All right, so now that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and start filling up the expansion tank. This one's gonna be the one that's like the most tedious because this is where you bleed it out from when you actually start the car. So there you go. You top it out to the brim, start massaging that top hose. You see all those bubbles coming out? Those are air pockets. And you're gonna notice that the level is gonna start getting lower and lower as you massage the top hose, because you're essentially replacing the air with coolant. All right, I'm gonna massage the bottom hose again. Just make sure most of the air pockets are out. So it's gonna be completely impossible to get all of them out, but the more we can get out, the better. All right, cool. We will probably leave it at that and just start bleeding it with the car on. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my bleeding kit, set it up for you guys. The way that I do it, I set it up extremely tall because my aero separator is at the highest point of the cooling system, so I just want to make sure all the bubbles are coming out from the higher point, which is going to be from this side right here. And there you go. That's how I have it set up. And just a disclaimer, if you have an IG expansion tank, these kits will probably not fit the actual expansion tank. I don't know why. The hole is extremely tight, the tolerances are super small, so you kind of have to modify it and kind of shave down some of the actual fitting to make it seat right. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start filling it up. As you can see, the coolant is going to be higher than the aero separator, which is what I want here. So I'm gonna start filling this thing on up with coolant, and then I'll let the car run and let it do its thing. When you do fill it up, you don't want to fill it up more than like right here, just in case you do get a little bit of overflow. Yeah, you should just have to just keep filling it up as you go. So we're going to go ahead, start filling this bad boy on up. Cool. And if you wanted to, if you're using the bleeding kit, you can keep doing your massaging thing and seeing if you can get air bubbles out. I don't think I'm going to be able to get more out. Oh, there's some coming out. But yeah, you can either do that or you can just let the car run its course and do its thing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let it run its course and then just bleed out the complete system. Another thing as well that you want to keep in mind, when you are bleeding out these cooling systems on Subarus, you want to make sure that your heater is on full blast. So make sure the dial right there is all the way to the red, and then you want to make sure that your actual fan is at the highest speed possible. The reason being is because it'll actually let the coolant run through the heater core, or at least they say. Not sure that's entirely true, but that is what I've been taught. And it also lets you know if the heater core is getting fluid through it by this getting hot. So if it starts spitting out hot air, then you know that the heater core is actually getting coolant through it and the cooling system is being bled. If you feel this kind of being lukewarm and your temperatures are pretty high, then you have an issue. You have a big air pocket somewhere. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and start getting this thing on bled. Sorry it's a little loud in here, but you can already see that the coolant is already starting to bubble up. I get on out of there. All right, and pretty much what you do here is you're gonna wait for all of the coolant to bleed out. Let the fans kick on. So let the car get up to operating temperature. So on mine, I can actually access it through my access port. So once it gets up to 205, my fans will kick on. Once they kick on, the coolant system is pretty much bled. I can already feel heat coming out through the heater vents, so that is obviously a good sign. That means that there is coolant going through the heater core, which is what you want. But yeah, once it gets to 205, that is when the fans will kick on. Let it run its course, let it run its cycles. Essentially what you want here is you want this to kind of run through 3 cycles. And then once it gets through the 3rd cycle, you want to rev it up to around 4,000 RPMs. Anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 is perfectly fine. Make sure you force any more extra air bubbles on out. Let it idle one more time, one more cooling cycle with the fans turning on, and then you should be pretty much set. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward, guys. I know a lot of people have been having a lot of issues trying to bleed their cooling systems. It's really that easy. So we're gonna go ahead and let this thing run its course.
let the fans kick on. I already manually turned on the fans to make sure that they're working. They are working, and let me tell you, the air is intense coming out of those Spal fans. So this should definitely be fixing my overheating issue without a doubt. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and let this run its course, and then we should be pretty much all set and done here. All right, so she's officially done bleeding. Pretty much the cycles have all gone through. It took me maybe 3 rev ups to 4K and probably 8 to 9 cycles of this thing kicking on the fans and kicking them off. Maybe it was 10 cycles. But yeah, it took quite a while for me to bleed the actual system. So just be aware, give yourself some time, make sure your neighbors are okay with it. I would actually close my garage doors when I would start revving it up to 3 or 4K. Not exactly ideal, not exactly smart, you know, it's emissions, it's carbon monoxide, you know, it can hurt your health, but I had to do what I had to do. So now I am going to get everything off and then pretty much reseal the coolant system, put the radiator cap back on, and then call it a day, go drive the car, and then fingers crossed that the Spal fans are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So far, coolant temps have been going down really quickly with these fans, so we'll see how it goes. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, the way I should know if you're done bleeding the cooling system on the Subarus, or just any car in general, is you don't see any more air pockets coming out, air bubbles coming out of the actual coolant. So yeah, just let it idle. If you don't see any air pockets or any more air bubbles coming out within like a minute or so, should be all set. I'm gonna go ahead and just top off that expansion tank just a little bit more. You know, if you chose to buy a Subaru, this is what I tell people. Don't buy a Subaru unless you're really passionate about the brand, because it's like Subarus are very finicky, they're very picky. Just with anything you do to a Subaru, they just are like, why are you doing this? And yeah, I always just tell people like, hey, if you're gonna go ahead and buy a Subaru, I am all for it. Just understand that they are just a pain to work with. Like, no matter what, they are always going to be a pain, and so on and so forth. I'm probably gonna top it off just a little bit more. But yeah, if you choose to build a Subaru, props to you, man. Like, I know I chose to build this, and it went really well, but it was quite the journey. So anyway, I choose a Subaru. Props to you, man. Just make sure you stay committed to the actual brand and the whole the build. They're not easy, and you will realize within time that they are not easy and they are not fun to work with at times. So now we're gonna go ahead and pretty much drive the car around, see how it does. I'm not gonna activate the switch. I'm gonna let the fans do its work and see if it starts wanting to overheat. Fingers crossed it all works here. Oh yeah, before we head on out, guys, check out this new toolbox I just got. I really needed an upgrade. God, I freaking love this thing. It's huge, man. It's everything I needed. Like, now I have more space. I have like, I think these 2 drawers might be empty and these 2 drawers might be empty. Yeah, before my other one, I was like filling everything up to the rim. And this one I have enough space to put more stuff around, and then you can put any extra tools, electric tools right here, and has like a charging station right here. It's freaking awesome, man. This toolbox is awesome. I am loving this thing. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's go for that drive. All right, so far the fans are doing just fine. But then again, today isn't really that hot of a day. It's around maybe 82 degrees outside ambient temperature. So it's doing just fine for now. Really, when I was having the issues was anything above, I want to say maybe 88 degrees, when it was really sunny outside. That's when I would really have those overheating issues where I'd want to kind of, you know, start creeping up on temperature. But right now it's doing perfectly fine. I just let it sit for a little bit at a light, and it got up to 207, dropped back down like it should normally. So as of right now, Spal fans are putting in the work. They definitely sound stronger and they feel stronger, so I can definitely attest to that. So yeah, as of now, Spal fans, definitely a thumbs up there. Oh look, one of the new 86s. But yeah, as of of now, it's definitely a thumbs up from me. I would highly recommend running this setup on your GC if you are able to. Like I said, OEM fans, I would highly recommend it over running Spal. So, yeah. As of now, this is awesome. So, yeah, I really needed to upgrade my fans. Those things were just holding me back. But yeah, so far so good. Loving it. I am loving it. So we're gonna go ahead, drive back on home, and then call it a day. I'll take it from here.
Alright, so to conclude this video, would I recommend the Spal fans? Absolutely. They are definitely an upgrade from those eBay fans I had. Like I said, if you can run OEM fans, that'll be your best bet. If not, these Spals will do absolutely perfect for your car. So the car is driving fine. There's no overheating as of now. We haven't gotten into extreme temperatures. Today was only 82 degrees. There was not any sunlight out really, so it's doing perfectly fine. Temperatures drop super quick with these fans. Once it hit 207, it would drop to 192 instantly. It would probably take maybe not even 15 seconds or 30 seconds for that temperature to drop. So it drops significantly quick. So yeah, that is pretty much going to conclude the video. That is how you would change out your fans. I have another video on the exact explanation on how it is that you put your zip ties through your fins and get your fans all set and done. I'll link that in the description down below. If you guys enjoyed what you guys saw today, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I appreciate everybody's support, and we'll continue on forward with the build. You know, I'm gonna get tuned here soon, probably within the next month or two. Right now, I'm currently looking for a daily driver. Not sure what exactly I want to get. I want to get something rear-wheel drive, but if it comes to something all-wheel drive, like a Forester or like an STI hatch or something, I might just go with that. But I really want to get something rear-wheel drive. I really want to do another build. I am specifically looking for an IS300, S14 240 SX, specifically a Kooky, or I'm also looking for a 350Z. HRDE doesn't matter, but I just want to build something that's rear-wheel drive, to just kind of slide around. So we'll see what I end up finding. Also, I want AC. This car doesn't have AC, so it's pretty brutal. So I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys on the next one. As always, if you guys need any help, just hit me up, and I'm always here to help out with whatever questions you guys have. All right, later.